Hi everybody, George here. I hope you're doing well. Today I have some science for you guys. I am going to explain relativity, and I'm also going to offer some of my own ideas on space and gravity. And this is all going to be with diagrams, so sometimes when you see something you can learn it a lot easier, so that's going to be helpful. And let me preface this by saying that I am not a scientist. I probably took as many science classes as you did in high school and college, and they were boring. Anyway, so I'm just a guy who happens to like science nowadays. I'm a curious person, I guess. Okay, let's begin. First, we'll discuss relativity, Einstein's big idea. Okay, so this diagram shows the essence of relativity. Here we have Earth, and here we have space around the Earth. And notice all of these lines which represent space are curved, as Einstein said, or we could say they are round. Circular, just as well. And this happens because round planets create round space. Einstein was the first scientist, and maybe the only scientist, to make this connection, to have this idea. And so the satellites of planets, such as the moon around the Earth, they're gonna go in a round shape, okay? And that is because space, the track, they're like a train. It's gonna follow the track. Satellites are gonna follow the track of space, which happens to be round. So there is no force here. There is simply a geometric shape that space has. So relativity is a property of space. It's not a force, which is a classical gravity. Okay. Space gradually loses its curve and becomes flat. This is why satellites stop being satellites. They just go in their own path, wherever they feel like it, I guess. The funny thing in this example is that if the sun were shaped any other shape, for example a rectangle, square, or triangle, the Earth would have to orbit in exactly those other shapes, because according to relativity the shape of space would in that case be the shape of the sun. So the path of the satellite would be that same shape. Okay, great. Now we will discuss my idea of gravity, which is gravity as space pressure. Okay, so this diagram shows this idea I have, that mass displaces space. And this is based on a basic truth that I believe is basic anyway. You cannot have two things in the same place at the same time. So if you have the Earth in outer space, that means that outer space cannot be where the Earth is. It must get displaced and surround the Earth. Okay, so here we are at step 2. We have displaced space, and now there is too much space near the Earth, so that's gonna get compressed with a nearby outer space. So you have this bonus space creating too much space for the area, and you create compression. So displacement creates compression of space. Okay, and then step 3, compression creates pressure. So naturally, once you compress anything, including a spring, you create pressure. And this pressure is bearing down on the Earth. So in this diagram, we have quantified space. So let's say that the Earth weighs 500 kilograms. Well, in that case, we would have to say the Earth displaces 500 kilograms worth of space. Now, is that really the case? Can you quantify space? It's theoretically consistent. The idea that amount of mass equals amount of displaced space is a logically consistent one. Okay, in this diagram we have a pretty simple explanation of why planets are round. It is because the distribution of pressure is even all over the surface of the globe. And this even amount of pressure creates an even globe, as opposed to, say, a square, which would have 4 corners where pressure would be lowest, or the triangle would have 3 corners where pressure would be lowest. Okay, so here we have a basic equation which says upward pressure equals downward pressure. So the Earth exerts upward pressure and the space exerts downward pressure, which is gravity. The downward space pressure, that's what gravity really is. What else? So the more massive the planet, the more pressure it exerts upon space, and the more downward pressure. In this diagram, we are shown what occurs in outer space. So you have 2 separate planets surrounded by their unique space pressure, and if they come close enough, that pressure from each planet is going to blend. and there's going to be mutual attraction in that zone. The zone of blending is kind of like the chain that creates orbital relationships. In this diagram, we see that it is space pressure that attracts planets to the sun, and we have to keep in mind that over large distances the pressure gets weaker, and this creates an orbital relationship. If the pressure was very strong, the planets would crash into the sun. Okay, so in this final diagram we see that gravity is downward space pressure. That's what's keeping us all grounded. Downward space pressure. And weight is substance under pressure from space. So if next time somebody asks you what is weight, just tell them that. Substance under pressure from outer space and lower space for that matter.